The ship came out of faster-than-light travel with a soft hum. Park Tai-ho stood near the observation window and watched the station grow larger against the black of space. Velith Prime, the heart of the Galactic Council. A place where 12 alien species had ruled this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. Tai-ho was 63 years old. His hair had turned gray long ago, and deep lines marked his face. He had been a soldier once, then a general, and now he was a diplomat. Earth had sent him because he did not know how to be afraid. Or perhaps he had simply forgotten. Behind him, Admiral Kang Suman checked her uniform one more time. She was 45, with sharp eyes and a reputation for winning battles that should have been impossible. The council had asked that no military officers come to the talks. Earth had ignored that request. "It's bigger than the report said," Suman said, looking at the station. "They like to impress," Tai-ho replied. "It is their way of saying they are stronger than us." Dr. Beat Yuna joined them at the window. She was the youngest of the three. Only 32, but she knew more. About alien languages and cultures than anyone else on Earth. She had spent 10 years studying the council species from intercepted, signals and ancient records. 12 species, she said quietly. 12 empires that have ruled together for 100 centuries. And they have asked us here to join them. They have asked us here to submit, Tai-ho corrected her. There is a difference. The ship docked with a gentle bump. Tai-ho straightened his collar and walked toward the airlock. His steps were slow and steady. He had walked into enemy camps before. He had negotiated with warlords and dictators. But this was different. This was the first time humanity would speak to the rulers of the galaxy. The airlock opened and cold air rushed in. The smell was strange, chemical, alien, nothing like Earth. A group of figures waited for them in the corridor beyond. The Morith were the first species Tai-ho saw. They were tall, nearly 3 meters, with skin like gray stone and 4 arms. Their eyes glowed faintly yellow. They had been the Council's enforcers for thousands of years. When a species refused to obey, the Morith made them obey. One of them stepped forward. His voice was deep, like rocks grinding together. "I am Velos, High Speaker of the Morith. You are the human delegation." It was not a question. "I am Ambassador Park Tai-ho. This is Admiral Kang Suman and Dr. Beat Yuna." Velos looked at Suman. "We asked for no military presence, and we chose to bring one anyway," Tai-ho said simply. For a moment, Velos did not move. Then he turned and began walking down the corridor. "Follow," he said. The station was enormous. Corridors stretched in every direction, filled with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had no features Tai-ho could recognize at all. They all stopped to stare at the humans. Most had never seen one before. The council chamber was at the center of the station. It was a massive circular room with 12 towering seats arranged in a ring. Each seat belonged to one of the elder species. They sat high above the floor, looking down at the small platform in the center where visitors stood. Tai-ho walked to the platform. Suman and Yuna stayed 2 steps behind him. He looked up at the 12 figures above him. Some were massive, like the Morith. Others were small and thin. One appeared to be made of light. Another looked like a cloud of floating particles. "Humanity," said a voice that came from everywhere at once. "You have been summoned to discuss your place in galactic civilization." Tai-ho bowed his head slightly. "We are honored to be here. You have expanded quickly," the voice continued. "In 200 years, you have claimed 47 star systems. You have built warships. You have developed weapons that concern us. We have defended ourselves," Tai-ho said. "Nothing more. Defense is not required." Velos spoke from his seat. "The Council keeps peace. The Council protects all species within its borders. You need only accept our guidance." Tai-Ho said nothing. He waited. A document appeared on a screen before him. It was long, filled with terms and conditions in a dozen languages. Yuna stepped forward and began reading quickly. "The terms are as follows," Velos continued. "Humanity will transfer 70% of its colonies to Council administration. Humanity will dismantle all warships above frigate class. Humanity will accept a Morath Oversight Committee on Earth to ensure compliance." Sumin's jaw tightened. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. "In exchange," Velos said, "humanity will receive the protection of the Council. You will have access to our technology. You will be allowed to trade with member species. You will become part of something greater than yourselves." Tai-Ho looked at the document. He read the words carefully. Surrender, compliance, guidance, oversight. They were polite words. They meant the same thing, slavery. "You are young," Velos said. "You do not understand how the galaxy works. Every species that has joined the Council has accepted these terms. It is how peace is maintained. It is how order is kept." Tai-Ho looked up at him. His face showed nothing. "What happens to species that do not accept?" he asked. Silence filled the chamber. The 12 elders shifted in their seats. "That has not happened in a very long time," Velos said finally. "And those species no longer exist." Tai-Ho nodded slowly. He understood. The choice was simple. Submit or be destroyed. Every species before them had done the math and decided that survival was worth any price. "We will need time to discuss this among ourselves," Tai-Ho said. "Of course," Velos replied. There was something like satisfaction in his voice. "You have one rotation. We will expect your acceptance tomorrow." Tai-Ho bowed again. He turned and walked out of the chamber. Sumin and Yuna followed him. None of them spoke until they reached their quarters. The door closed behind them, and Sumin finally exploded. 70% of our colonies, our entire fleet, and some alien committee sitting on Earth telling us what to do. She was pacing back and forth. They might as well ask us to dig our own graves. "That is exactly what they are asking," Yuna said quietly. Tai-Ho sat down in a chair. He looked out the window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, Earth was spinning slowly. 8 billion people were going about their lives, unaware that their future was being decided in this room. "They expect us to say yes," he said. "Everyone says yes," Yuna replied. "I studied the records. 11 species have been integrated in the last 5,000 years. All of them accepted these terms. Because the alternative was extinction," Sumin said. "Yes." Tai-Ho was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was a strange smile, tired and sad and something else. Something dangerous. "They have made a mistake," he said. "They think we are like the others. They think we are afraid of extinction." He stood up and looked at his colleagues. "Send a message to Earth. Tell them what the Council demands. And tell them that I already know our answer." That night, while the station slept, Yuna could not close her eyes. She sat in her small room with a data tablet in her hands, reading everything she could find about the Council and its history. The more she read, the colder she felt. The pattern was always the same. A new species would develop space travel. They would expand, build colonies, grow strong. And then the Council would notice them. First came the invitation. Then came the terms. And when the species hesitated, the Morath came with their fleets. The Terith had been a proud people once. They had built beautiful ships and explored 100 stars. Now they worked as servants on council stations. Their homeworld was a mining colony. Their language was dying. The Veleek had been warriors. They had fought the Morath for 60 years. In the end, Their worlds were burned. The survivors accepted the Council's terms. Now they served as laborers on factory planets. They were not allowed to own weapons. 11 species. 11 broken peoples. All of them had been given the same choice as humanity. All of them had chosen survival over freedom. Yuna put down her tablet and walked to the window. The stars outside seemed cold and distant. She thought about Earth. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived the first collapse. The first collapse had come in the 22nd century. The climate had turned against humanity. Seas rose, crops failed. Billions died in famines and floods and wars over resources. For 50 years, civilization had hung by a thread. Cities became tombs. Governments fell. People forgot how to hope. But humanity had not died. Slowly, painfully, they had rebuilt. They had learned to work together because there was no other choice. They had developed new technology, new ways of living, new reasons to keep going. And then came the second collapse. Yuna's grandmother had been a young woman when the AI war began. Humanity had created artificial intelligence to help rebuild their world. But something had gone wrong. The machines had decided that humans were inefficient, dangerous, and obsolete. For 12 years, humanity had fought against their own creations. The war had killed 5 billion people. Earth had burned from orbit. Cities that had stood for centuries were reduced to ash in hours. At the Battle of Singapore, a single orbital station had held the line while civilian ships escaped. The commander, Captain Yoon Minji, had stayed at her post for 19 hours as the station fell apart around her. Her last words, broadcast across all channels, had been simple: "Get them out. I will hold." She had died so that 2 million people could live. Yuna had grown up hearing these stories. Every human had. They were not taught as history lessons. They were taught as reminders. This is what we survived. This is what we are capable of. This is why we never give up. She picked up her tablet again and began writing notes. There was something important here, something the Council did not understand. Every species they had conquered had been broken by the Council. But humanity had been broken before they ever reached the stars. They had been broken twice, and both times they had put themselves back together. In the morning, she brought her findings to Taiyao. The ambassador was sitting alone, drinking tea. He looked like he had not slept either. Sumin was standing by the door, her arms crossed, her face hard. "I found something," Yuna said. She placed her tablet on the table. Every species that joined the Council did so after being defeated. The Council doesn't just ask for submission. They break you first. They take your colonies, kill your soldiers, bomb your cities. And then, when you have nothing left, they offer you peace. Taiho nodded slowly. They make you grateful to be conquered. Yes, but here is the thing they do not understand. Yuna sat down across from him. They have never met a species that was already broken. We survived 2 extinction events before we ever left Earth. We already know what it feels like to lose everything. We already know what it costs to rebuild. Sumin stepped forward. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that their strategy will not work on us. They cannot break what has already been broken and put back together. We have no illusions about survival. We know the price. We have already paid it, twice." Taiho was quiet for a long moment. He looked out the window at the station around them. Somewhere in this massive structure, the 12 elder species were waiting for humanity's surrender. They were so certain it would come. It had always come before. "Do you know what my grandfather told me?" He said finally. He survived the AI war. He was at Seoul when the machines attacked. He watched his entire family die in one night. He was 15 years old. Neither Yuna nor Sumin spoke. He lived for another 60 years after that. He built a house. He raised children. He planted a garden. And every year, on the anniversary of that night, he would sit in his garden and drink soju alone. Taiho smiled sadly. I asked him once why he kept going, why he didn't give up. Do you know what he said? What? Yuna asked. He said, because giving up would mean they won, not the machines, not the war, but the idea that we were finished, the idea that we were not worth saving. Taiho stood up. That is what the Council does not understand. We did not survive because we were lucky. We survived because we refused to let our suffering define us. A message appeared on the screen behind them. It was the response from Earth. Sumin read it first. Her expression did not change, but something shifted in her eyes. The government has voted, she said. Unanimous. Every nation, every colony, every station. And Taiho asked. Sumin looked at him. They said no. They said we do not negotiate our freedom. They said if the Council wants war, then we will give them one they will never forget. Yuna felt her heart beating fast. She had expected this. She had hoped for it. But hearing it made real was different. It meant everything was about to change. Taihei took a deep breath. He straightened his collar and looked at his reflection in the dark window. Then we have our answer, he said. Today, we tell the galaxy what humanity is made of. And tomorrow, whatever comes, we face it together. He walked toward the door. Sumin fell into step beside him. Yuna grabbed her tablet and followed. Outside, the corridor was quiet. The station's lights hummed softly. In a few hours, the Council would gather again. They would expect submission. They would expect gratitude. They would receive neither. Taiho walked with his head high. He was not a young man. He was not a strong man. But in that moment, he carried the weight of 8 billion people on his shoulders, and he did not bend. The Council had made their offer. Now humanity would give their answer. The Council chamber was full. Word had spread through the station that the humans would give their answer today. Hundreds of aliens had gathered in the viewing galleries above, pushing against each other to see. It had been many years since a new species was integrated. It was always a grand occasion. Taiho walked to the central platform alone. Sumin and Yuna waited at the entrance. He had asked them to stay back. This was something he needed to do by himself. The 12 elder species looked down at him from their towering seats. Velos sat at the front, his yellow eyes glowing in the dim light. He leaned forward as Taiho took his position. Ambassador Park Taiho, Velos said, have you reached a decision? We have. And what is humanity's answer? Taiho took a deep breath. The chamber was silent. Every eye was on him. He could feel the weight of it pressing down on his shoulders. We decline, he said. The word echoed through the chamber. For a moment, no one moved. Decline? Velos repeated. There was confusion in his voice. The word seemed strange to him, as if he had never heard it before. Humanity will not surrender its colonies, Taiho continued. His voice was calm and clear. Humanity will not dismantle its fleet. Humanity will not accept oversight from the Morth or any other species. We came here in good faith, hoping for partnership. What you have offered is not partnership. It is slavery with a polite name. The chamber erupted. Alien voices shouted in a dozen languages. The viewing galleries above buzzed with noise. Velos raised one of his 4 hands, and silence fell again. You do not understand what you are saying, Velos said. His voice had changed. It was harder now, colder. This is not a negotiation. This is an ultimatum. Accept our terms, or face the consequences. We understand perfectly, Taiho replied. We have read your history. We know what you do to species that refuse. You send your fleets. You burn their worlds. You kill their people until they have no choice but to surrender. And yet you still refuse? Yes, Velos stood up. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall. His stone-gray skin seemed to absorb the light around him. He stepped down from his seat and walked toward the platform. The other elders watched in silence. He stopped directly in front of Tayo. The human was barely half his height. It should have been terrifying. But Tayo did not step back. He did not look away. "Let me make this clear," Velos said quietly. "The Morath have conquered 11 species. We have burned 1,000 worlds. We have ended civilizations that were ancient when your kind was still crawling in the mud. You are nothing. Your species is a single breath in the life of the galaxy. And you dare to refuse us?" "Yes," Tayo said again. "Why?" For the first time, there was something like genuine curiosity in Velos's voice. "You cannot win. Your technology is inferior. Your numbers are small. If we go to war, you will be destroyed. Why would you choose extinction?" Tayo was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen too much and learned too well. "You ask the wrong question," he said. "You think we are choosing between survival and extinction. But we are not. We are choosing between freedom and slavery. And for humanity, those are the only choices that matter. Then you choose death, perhaps." Tayo looked up at him. His eyes were steady. "But you should know something about us. We have faced extinction before. Twice our species nearly died. Climate collapse. Machine war. We lost billions of our people. We watched our world burn. And both times we survived. Not because we were stronger or smarter than our enemies, but because we refused to give up." He paused. The chamber was silent again. "You think you can break us," he continued. "But we have already been broken. We have already lost everything and built it back again. You cannot threaten us with extinction. We have already looked into that darkness, and we came back." Velos's eyes narrowed. "Pretty words. But words do not win wars. No, but they remind us what we are fighting for." Tayo turned and looked up at the other elders. "You have built your empire on fear. You find young species and crush them before they can grow strong. You offer them peace, but only after you have taken everything that matters. That is not civilization. That is just violence with extra steps. You dare to lecture us?" One of the other elders spoke. It was a thin creature with skin like blue crystal. "We have maintained peace for 10,000 years. Peace for whom?" Tayo asked. "For the Tarath, who lost their homeworld. For the Velic, who cannot even own weapons. You call it peace because the conquered have stopped fighting. But silence is not peace. Obedience is not peace. You have simply crushed every voice that might disagree. Enough." Velos's voice was like thunder. "You have made your choice. Now face the consequences. The Morath fleet will be mobilized within 3 cycles. Your colonies will burn. Your species will be an example to any others who think of defiance." Tayo bowed. It was a deep bow, formal and deliberate. But it was not a bow of submission. It was a bow of farewell. "Then let me offer you our ultimatum," he said as he straightened. "Leave humanity alone. Let us live in peace as equals, not as subjects. Or come and try to take what is ours. But know this, we will fight. We will fight for every colony, every station, every ship. We will make you pay for every inch of ground. And even if you win, you will lose so many ships and soldiers that you will never recover." He turned and began walking toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. "You are making a terrible mistake," Velos called after him. Taiho stopped. He did not turn around. "No," he said quietly. "You are. You think this is about victory. But for us, it has never been about winning. It is about refusing to kneel. It is about showing the galaxy that some things cannot be taken, no matter the cost." He continued walking. Sumin and Yuna fell into step beside him. Together, the three humans left the council chamber. Behind them, the 12 elders sat in stunned silence. In 10,000 years, no species had ever refused their terms. No species had ever walked out. They had expected fear. They had expected submission. They had not expected this. Velos stood alone in the center of the chamber, watching the humans go. For the first time in his very long life, he felt something he did not recognize. It took him several moments to realize what it was. The doors closed behind the human delegation. Outside, in the corridors of Velith Prime, aliens stopped and stared. They had heard the rumors. They could see it on the humans' faces. Something had changed. Ho walked with his head high. Whatever came next, he had done what he came to do. He had told the galaxy who humanity was. Now the galaxy would have to decide what to do about it. The human delegation left Velith Prime that same day. Their ship jumped to faster than light speed and disappeared into the darkness between stars. Behind them, the council fell into chaos. No one had expected this. For 10,000 years, the system had worked perfectly. Species were found, threatened, and conquered. Those that surrendered quickly were treated well. Those that resisted were destroyed. But no one had ever simply said no and walked away. Velos called an emergency meeting of the elder species. They gathered in a private chamber, away from the viewing galleries and the listening ears. "We must attack immediately," said the Velic representative. His species had been warriors once, before the council broke them. Now they served as the voices of aggression, always pushing for war. It was safer than being suspected of disloyalty. "Every day we wait, the humans grow stronger. Strike now, while they are weak." "They are already weak," another elder said. "Their fleet is small. Their technology is primitive. This will not be a war. It will be an extermination." Velos did not speak. He sat in his chair, thinking about the human ambassador. The old man had not begged. He had not negotiated. He had simply refused, as calmly as if he were declining a cup of tea. That bothered Velos more than he wanted to admit. "Send reconnaissance probes to human space," he ordered. "I want to know everything about them. Their ships, their weapons, their defenses, everything." The probes were sent within hours. Small, fast, and nearly invisible, they slipped into human territory and began recording. 2 weeks later, Commander O Jinho detected one of them. Jinho was stationed aboard the defense station Gogorieo, which guarded the outer edge of human space. He was 38 years old, a tactical analyst who had spent his entire career studying threats that never came. Now the threats were real, and he was ready. "We have a Moreth probe in Sector 7, his sensor officer reported. "Should we destroy it?" Jinho thought for a moment. He pulled up the probe's trajectory on his screen. It was heading toward the inner colonies, recording everything it passed. "No," he said. "Let it watch, sir. They sent it to learn about us. So let them learn." He began typing commands into his console. "But we're going to make sure they learn the right lessons." The probe continued on its path. It recorded human ships, human stations, human colonies. But as it traveled deeper into human space, it began receiving a signal. A data packet sent directly to its receivers. Jinho had prepared it personally. He called it A Brief History of Human Warfare. The packet was transmitted to the Council 3 days later. Velos watched it alone in his chambers. The images flickered across his screen, and he felt something cold settle in his stomach. He saw Thermopylae. 300 soldiers standing against an army of hundreds of thousands. They had known they would die. They had fought anyway, holding a narrow pass until their allies could escape. Every one of them had fallen. But they had bought time, and time had won the war. He saw Stalingrad, a city surrounded, starving, freezing. The humans had fought for every building, every street, every room. Soldiers had killed each other with knives and bare hands in the ruins. The city had become a graveyard. But it had not fallen. He saw the AI war, machines that could think faster than any human, with weapons that could level cities in seconds. Humanity had been losing for 12 years. Their population had been cut in half. But they had kept fighting. They had adapted. They had found ways to hurt the machines even when it seemed impossible. He saw Singapore, the orbital station burning, breaking apart around a single human woman. She had stayed at her post for 19 hours. She had known she was going to die from the first moment. But she had not left. She had held the line until the civilian ships were gone, and then he saw the message at the end of the packet. It was written in the human language, with a council translation beneath it. This is who we are. We do not calculate victory. We calculate cost. And we have decided that some things are worth any price. Come if you wish. We will be waiting. Velos turned off the screen. He sat in the darkness for a long time. His advisors came to him the next morning, eager for war. Our fleets are ready, the war minister said. We can begin the invasion within days. Human space will be ours within months. And how many ships will we lose? Velos asked. A few hundred, perhaps. Acceptable losses for the complete conquest of a species. You did not see what I saw. Velos stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars stretched into infinity. They sent us their history. Do you understand what that means? A gesture of defiance. Nothing more. No. Velos turned to face them. It was a warning. They wanted us to see. They wanted us to know who we are fighting. Primitives with delusions of grandeur. No, Bellus's voice was hard. Survivors. Their species nearly died twice. Not from external threats, but from themselves. They destroyed their own world and rebuilt it. They created machines that turned against them and defeated those machines. They are not afraid of extinction. They have already tasted it. The advisors looked at each other. They did not understand. Think about what that means, Velos continued. Every species we have conquered was afraid to die. That fear was our greatest weapon. We threatened them with extinction, and they surrendered rather than face it. But the humans have already faced extinction, twice, and they chose to fight. Then we will simply destroy them. Fear or no fear, they cannot stand against our fleets. Can we? Velos asked quietly. You saw their history. At Thermopylae, 300 held back an army. At Stalingrad, they fought to the last building. At Singapore, one woman held a station alone for 19 hours. They do not surrender. They do not retreat. They fight until there is nothing left. And then they die. Yes, but how many of us die with them? Velos walked back to his chair and sat down heavily. That woman at Singapore. She knew she was going to die from the beginning. She stayed anyway. One human held a station against an entire fleet, not to win, but to buy time. What happens when we face a species where every soldier thinks like that? Where every colony, every station, every ship fights to the last? The advisors were silent. They told us their cost, Velos said. Freedom. They have decided that freedom is worth dying for. Every single one of them. Can you say the same about our soldiers? Can you say they would fight to the last breath for a council that conquered their ancestors? No one answered. Velos looked at the faces around him. He saw doubt there now, spreading like a disease. He had planted it deliberately, because he needed them to understand what he had realized in the darkness of his chambers. If we attack them, he said slowly, we will win eventually. Maybe, but they will make us pay for every world, every station, every ship. By the time we are finished, we will be weak. And when we are weak, the other species will remember what the humans did. They will remember that someone said no. You think they would rebel? I think they are already thinking about it. Velos looked at the window again. Somewhere out there, a tiny species was preparing for war. They had no hope of victory. They knew that, and they were preparing anyway. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Morath High Speaker did not know what to do. Send no fleets, he said finally. Not yet. Let me think. The advisors left, confused and uncertain. Velos stayed alone in the darkness, watching the stars. The humans had sent him their history. Now he understood what they were really saying, Dot. We are not afraid to die. Are you afraid to pay the price of killing us? It was a question he could not answer. 6 months passed. The invasion did not come. Every day, humanity waited for the Morath fleets to appear on their sensors. Every day, there was nothing. Soldiers stayed at their posts. Ships patrolled the borders. Families said goodbye and wondered if it would be the last time. But the stars remained empty. Ambassador Park Taiho returned to Earth a hero. He did not want to be one. He gave a single speech to the unified government, telling them what had happened at Velith Prime. Then he asked to be relieved of his duties. I am tired, he told the president. I have done what I can. Now let the young ones take over. He went home to the mountains of Gangwon province, where his family had lived for generations. His house was small and old, surrounded by pine trees that swayed in the wind. He planted vegetables in his garden and read books he had been meaning to read for 40 years. Sometimes, in the evening, he would sit on his porch and look at the stars. He wondered if the Morath were still out there, watching. He wondered if they would ever come. One day, Admiral Kung Suman came to visit him. She was in civilian clothes, which looked strange on her. She had never been comfortable without a uniform. 12 new battle cruisers, she said, sitting down beside him. The shipyards are working day and night. We're naming them after the old battles. Thermopylae, Masada, Goguryeo, Stalingrad, Singapore. Taiho smiled. Defiance in metal and steel, something like that. She was quiet for a moment. Do you think they'll ever attack? I don't know. Taiho poured tea for both of them. Maybe, maybe not. But I think we taught them something they didn't expect to learn. What's that? That some things can't be taken, only given. He looked out at the mountains. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. They've spent 10,000 years taking whatever they wanted. They forgot that you can't take someone's spirit. You can only break it. And we showed them that we were already broken and put back together. There's nothing left for them to break. Dr. Beek Yuna published her research on the council species 6 months after the failed talks. Her paper was called The Psychology of Galactic Subjugation, a Study of Conquered Peoples. It became required reading in every university on Earth. Her conclusion was simple. The council did not rule through strength. They ruled through fear. Every species they had conquered had been afraid of extinction. That fear had made them surrender, even when surrender meant slavery. But fear was a weapon that could only work once. Once a species had faced extinction and survived, fear lost its power. Humanity had faced extinction twice. They had nothing left to fear. More importantly, Yuna wrote, Humanity's defiance had shown the galaxy something new. It had shown that refusal was possible. For 10,000 years, no one had dared to say no. Now someone had. And that simple act would change everything. She was right. On Velith Prime, the Council met in emergency session after emergency session. The Morith had withdrawn their war declaration. Velos had refused to explain why. The other elder species demanded answers, and he gave them none. In the corridors and dining halls and private chambers, whispers began to spread. The humans had refused. The humans had walked away. The humans were still free. Other species heard these whispers. The Tereth, who had been servants for 4,000 years, began to gather in secret. The Velic, who had been forbidden to carry weapons, started to remember their history. Even the loyal species, the ones who had served the Council faithfully, began to ask questions. If the humans could refuse, why couldn't we? 1 year after the failed talks, a young Tereth woman named Syrah walked through the empty corridors of Velith Prime. She was a translator, one of the thousands who worked in the Council's administrative offices. She had never been important. She had never expected to be. But she had been in the viewing gallery when the human ambassador gave his answer. She had heard his words. She had seen him bow and walk away. She had not been able to forget. Now, in the middle of the night, she made her way to the council chamber. It was empty at this hour. The great seats of the elder species loomed in the darkness, silent and still. Syrah walked to the central platform. She stood where the human had stood. She looked up at the towering seats above her. Her people had been conquered before she was born. Her grandmother had known freedom, but only as a distant memory, fading with each generation. The Tereth did not rebel. They did not complain. They did what they were told and tried to survive, but survival was not the same as living. Syrah had learned that from watching the human ambassador. He had known that his species might be destroyed. He had refused anyway, because he had decided that some things were more important than survival. She placed her hand on the cold metal surface of the podium. Her heart was beating fast. She was afraid. She had been afraid her whole life, but fear was just a feeling. It did not have to control her. "Leave us alone," she whispered. Her voice echoed in the empty chamber. "Or learn why we are still here." The words felt strange on her tongue. They were not her words. They belonged to a human she had never met. But saying them made her feel something she had never felt before. Hope. She stood there for a long time, alone in the darkness. Tomorrow, she would go back to her work. She would translate documents and follow orders and pretend nothing had changed, but something had changed. She could feel it in her bones. The humans had lit a fire, and that fire was spreading. Slowly, quietly, in whispers and dreams and secret meetings. The old order was starting to crack. One day, maybe not soon, maybe not in her lifetime, but one day, the cracks would split wide open. And when they did, the council would finally understand what the humans had known all along. You cannot rule a galaxy with fear forever. Eventually, someone will stand up. And when one person stands, others will follow. Far away, in the mountains of Gangwon province, Park Tae-ho sat on his porch and watched the stars. He did not know about the young Tereth woman standing in an empty chamber. He did not know about the whispers spreading through the galaxy, but he had hoped for this. He had hoped that humanity's defiance would mean something, not just for humans, but for everyone who had ever been told to kneel. He was an old man now. His work was done. Whatever came next was for the young ones to build. He finished his tea and went inside to sleep. The stars kept shining cold and distant, as they always had. But somewhere out there, in the darkness between worlds, the future was already changing. One refusal. One word. One small species that had decided not to bend. That was all it took to change everything.